invito sul palco per l'ultima sessione del mattino una keynote speaker che è Catherine Nakalembe, assistant professor presso il Dipartimento di Scienze Geografiche dell'Università del Maryland. La sua ricerca si concentra sull'applicazione del telerilevamento e dell'apprendimento automatico nell'agricoltura di piccola scala, nella sicurezza alimentare, nell'allerta precoce e nella valutazione dei disastri. È la direttrice del NASA Harvest Africa and Responsabile Tematico per l'agricoltura e la sicurezza alimentare di NASA Servir Applied Sciences. Ha ricevuto diversi riconoscimenti e premi per il suo lavoro, tra cui la Medaglia del Giubileo d'Oro, il Premio Africa Food 2020 e un premio di eccellenza individuale, Geo, nel 2019, per il suo impegno nel migliorare la sicurezza alimentare in Africa attraverso l'uso avanzato delle osservazioni terrestri. La invito, insomma, a raccontarci la sua storia.
Yeah, my mic is on. Wonderful to be here today. I'm glad, the talks today have been very beneficial to myself. Learning about all the different hubs and what they're doing is really exciting. And I was tasked to talk about the power of diversity and innovation. You've seen the talks, you've seen the people in the room. The diversity of ideas and approaches is really critical to everything we do, especially when we're trying to work on grand challenges. And my thought was to explain what I do and why it works, how it works, because we have a very diverse team. I do not have a clicker. So I'm going to go first, and I'll talk about kind of the motivation for my work. So a very good, I think it was Emmanuel who talked about, all the tools and technology, how we can measure everything really well, but sorry, we can't do anything about it. Remember that cartoon earlier? One of the things that I think about is food security. I think about it a lot, and I primarily focus on monitoring agricultural production, as you'll see as I continue. But trying to ensure availability, access, and utilization, stability of food across the world is getting worse. Way worse than you can imagine. And with COVID, with the conflict in the Ukraine, we've already seen a graphic about how many more million people will be food insecure. So this is what I think about all the time. And so with the technology and all the advancements, be it in biotechnology, be it in improved seeds, the majority of the world is not benefiting. So there are a lot more people who need food aid. And so we have, hundreds of millions of thousands of people who are at risk, and we're getting further away from SDG number 2. And events like this is from 2019. You could look for more from 2019 till now. Massive events. This is Cyclone Idai that hit Southern Africa that caused massive impacts that can be measured, can be tracked. We can already warn with all the technology we have in the world. So I was able to sit at my desk and assess the extent of Cyclone Idai. I could estimate how many people were impacted, but I could just do that myself because I have the computer, the resources, as well as the knowledge to do it. And while Idai was happening, a little bit further north in Eastern Africa, a drought was developing. So same year, an extreme event, extreme opposite event, and you have millions of people at risk of food insecurity. And by the end of August 2019, central parts of Kenya actually had almost complete crop failure. And all of this could have been predicted because as Idai was happening, moisture was being pulled out of East Africa. Idai was forecast. Moisture was being pulled out of East Africa, and a few months later, crops had failed in Kenya. A few months later, Kenya was looking for food aid, for example. So you could have planned a little earlier. I knew this was unfolding, but I knew this, and a lot of other people knew this who have access to the tools. And so, obviously, one of the enabling things is satellites. So we have lots and lots of satellites. I talk about satellites all the time. We have the computing power to do this. With the little thing around the satellite and the machine learning and the model is supposed to be the cloud. We're able to process massive amounts of data. So before it would take weeks to download images for an entire country, it takes minutes. You can process through an entire archive and map anything you want with a little bit of additional data. So we have data sets to map every agricultural landscape around the world. And with a little bit of innovation, push, interest, drive, and inclusive innovation, we can try to do things that work for those different landscapes. So the agriculture in the top right corner of this, top left corner of this graphic is very complicated to study. It's very complicated to measure. You need high resolution data sets. much more computing power, and a lot more intelligent people who are actually interested in looking at that agriculture. And unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, majority of farmers who work in these landscapes are the poorest. They don't have access to not only investments into things like tractors, they also don't have money to have seeds. They also don't have access to any resources to overcome the challenges that might unfold. And they're not on the internet. As you have read, they're in rural areas. They don't have access to pretty much most of the things that you need to be able to succeed as a farmer. So the program that I work under is the NASA Harvest, is NASA's Agriculture Food Security Initiative. It is sort of was developed to take advantage of NASA's investments in satellites, research that have been ongoing forever, to be able to enable improving agricultural decision-making through the use of satellite data. And it's NASA's contribution to GeoGLAM. GeoGLAM is a Group on Earth Observations Global Agriculture Monitoring Initiative. It's a sort of a voluntary organization of researchers and other people who are interested in using Earth observations for agriculture. And this is sort of the overarching framework for the work that I do, that I describe under the Africa program, using existing, current, new, upcoming satellite technology, developing methods to utilize those data sets, combining with ground data, develop these sort of downstream products, cropland, crop type maps, that then we later on use to model yield, look at crop condition, and make that information directly available on your desktop. And your desktop could be any desktop, but literally translating that into policy and utilizing it downstream is a very different process, similar to the image that I showed of Cyclone Idai. And so what I focus on is improving systems where people can access data so that it works. When you are in somewhere, for example, in Mali, you can actually, open the file and look at it. And then when you open it, you can use it. And then when you open it, you can actually use it to make a decision, or you can kind of translate it into something useful at the local level. And then number 2 is advancing the methods using Earth observations and artificial intelligence. I said the agriculture we focus on is very complicated. Not a lot of people do it because there's so many limitations. Lack of training data, lack of high-resolution satellites, lack of access to additional data sets that you might require, and just the vast amount of processing and investments you need is just really, really extreme. And then 3, most important to me, is transferring that capacity. It means very different things depending on who you're working with. And then partnerships. So there's so many things that can happen, but if you're partnering with different organizations, you can tap the resources across different organizations and make much more impact. And so just to show some impact from our work, investing in those systems, we're able to support programs across multiple countries, including setting up what we call these over there, sorry, I was looking down here. These national food security bulletin that use satellite Earth observations for agriculture monitoring. These are not managed or run by us. These are run by national organizations contributing to the disaster risk financing project in Uganda. What we contributed is sort of establishing the workflow, and they run it themselves. Another example down here is that these systems are global. They're accessible. You can use them anywhere in the world, and they have the best available data sets for a particular region. So our methods is AI, remote sensing for agriculture. Our work is sort of at that intersection using computer vision, machine learning, combining with remote sensing and applying it to food security. So doing cropland, crop type maps, field boundary, yield estimation, pest and disease detection. So we're doing cutting edge stuff, but the way we do it, sometimes I think it doesn't kind of appeal, doesn't kind of come off because we work with many people who are not usually a part of the process. So cropland, crop type mapping, it's an example of a map. What is crop? Where is it? What crop it is an example. Second, a field boundary, just delineating a boundary. It's kind of obvious in a lot of places, but once you delineate it, you can know where do I need to irrigate a little bit more, where do I need to fertilize a little bit more, what is growing in that field, how can I improve it going forward? Has it degraded beyond recovery, for example? And so some of the tools that we've developed include this, Open Map Flow. It's an open source pipeline for doing cropland crop type mapping. You can use it for forests. It's open, it's available. So open and available means very different things. We just had a chat about this morning. Is that it's a very complicated, but it's open. It allows you to use any library that works with time series data, satellite data time series, to collect data over time, and to learn from multiple images over time. And you use the newest model you want, the newest machine learning model that's available in this library, you can use it. What it means is that you can easily process data, run a model, change the model, create a map really rapidly, view it, change your mind, try to create another one. You can change where you're doing it. It's open. So, all right, I have 5 minutes. And this is an example of some of the results that we have. And then one of the things I mentioned before, access to data is very, very complicated. So we're trying to create data sets that allow us to develop products for the countries we're interested in. It's very difficult to develop a crop type map for Rwanda right now because we don't have sufficient data, for example, across the country distributed to represent all of the crops. So we want to work really, really hard to do that. We work with national agents, national analysts across countries, train them on the things that are relevant at the level that they're interested in. Partnerships, we work with many different partners. This is some of them for different things. For example, partnering with Planet allows us to develop much higher resolution data or create label data for a place where there isn't any, the example that I showed for Togo. So, how is diversity a part of the process? It's empowering new voices. This is an example of my favorite project called Helmets Labeling Crops. Literally a helmet with a GoPro camera recording crops, not road or streets and fancy things going on, just crops. So we're using cameras to take pictures, and then we process those pictures through a computer vision pipeline to extract what crops are growing. So to do this project, for it to be successful, we had to work with so many different people, including a motor taxi driver. Many motor taxi drivers. They were more efficient. They were much smarter. We created so many solutions, including the fact that we can ensure the camera is plugged in all the time by installing a little thing on the motorbike to ensure that it is working the entire time. So that would not have happened if we did not consider the process, how it would work, and really communicating with them to figure out the problem that we were solving. And the most successful team worked purely with motor taxi drivers, and they were able to map an entire country in 3 weeks. They were like, we're on it, we're going to do it. Number 2, broadening perspective. We have worked with many different people in this project, partners from all these countries, contributing different things. We've had other people join in because they're really interested, literally volunteering to collect data for us. What this has done is that the project's become sort of like a mind frame, like I want to be a part of Helmets Labeling Crops, but it has evolved far beyond how it was motivated to create crop type labels so we can create crop type maps. Number 3, combining skills. So in order to get from our images to our label, the label is a point, a geolocated point with what crop it is, as you see on the map all the way on the left. To come from the image to the point, not only do we need data to be collected physically, uploaded into the cloud, pre-processed in a machine learning pipeline, then pre-processed again, then creating label data. We have so many different people with so many different skills working to make this project a success. This is an example of how we collect data, just fun. I put this in the middle just to show you. And then solving problems. The problem we're trying to solve is try to make more orange points in this map that you see. We're trying to create crop type labels that are open access, that anybody who wants to develop a map can develop. This is the problem that we're trying to solve, and as we get newer data, we upload them, and the data are public. Fostering social cohesion. We work with extension agents, motorcycle drivers, people who lead NGOs in different countries, and we're like sort of like a part of a family. We have all these WhatsApp groups where we share ideas and solve all sorts of problems. You'll be amazed how many questions and how many things you find out, like a pest outbreak. Someone will send a picture because they saw something abnormal while they were driving, collecting data. And when they share that, somebody else says, I saw the same thing, I saw the same thing, I saw the same thing. In that group, we have a person from the Ministry of Agriculture who then takes that information further and some action, and I can tell you through WhatsApp, I have seen an actual action, a decision being made to help address that problem. So I sort of included many more, which is tapping into global talent. I just included some of my colleagues that I work with, but there are far more people that I work with as part of the work that we do. So we are working from a global perspective and bringing technology, tools, knowledge, expertise across different backgrounds. And we can't do any of this without actually including more people as part of the process. Be it just purely data collection, I cannot go and collect all the data that I want. I don't have the best expertise because it requires much more than that. And last one, and I'm done, is addressing global challenges. So I like this it's a new graphic from NASA, which is NASA's Earth Observing System. You can see that we have to study so many different things. I don't know if anybody in the room possesses the expertise to look at clouds, the surface, the inner Earth, and can tell us everything that is happening on Earth, within Earth, under Earth, around Earth, right? In order to do this properly, in order to overcome our grand challenges, climate change, food insecurity, among others, we need to work together. So I think that's why I kind of included this here. And this is my last slide, I promise. Thank you. I wanted to show this, to show that that farmer in Tanzania, in Iringa, knew more about agriculture than we did, even when we came with the most high-resolution satellite data that we had for that region. Thank you.